Hello everybody, this is Kay and welcome to my channel, Junking with Gigi. If you are new to my channel or haven't heard me tell this little story before, I call it Junking with Gigi because Gigi is the name my grandchildren call me, and I decided to name my channel after that beloved title. And I also want to thank you for watching. If you're new here, please subscribe, give me a thumbs up. And also, go check out my videos that I have on making a journal for a giveaway when I reach 1,000 subscribers. If you watch any of those videos and subscribe and like and make a comment, then you'll be entered into a drawing for that journal. So I wanted to encourage anybody who hasn't already done that to do that. And so now let's get on with today's project. I tend to save and hoard junk mail envelopes, particularly the kind with the windows in them. I just have a hard time throwing them away, but now I have a whole box full of them, and I've been trying to figure out a way to use some of them up. And I came up with this idea of making a page kind of for a journal out of 2 of them. And so that's the project I'm going to share with you today. This is the only one I've made so far, so it's kind of my prototype. I did make a couple of mistakes with this one, and I'm going to rectify those mistakes in this video. One of them being I should not have sewn the middle like this, because I was going to sew the edges top and bottom anyway, and that would have held the pages together, so that was unnecessary, and it caused a little buckling, I think, is what happened here. Plus, my sewing was probably sloppy. But basically what I did was I just took 2 envelopes and opened them up on 3 sides and placed them back to back to make a page, a pocket page, if you want to call it, for a journal. And then I made cards to put on the inside that show through the windows here and back here. And then I also took some little pieces of scrapbook paper and made extra little pockets on the front and on the inside of the back. And I put some papers on the opposite sides of them to make journaling spots. So let me gather some materials and we're going to make another one of these together. I have a few different pairs of envelopes here that I want to make another one of these, let's call them envelope folios for our journals. These 2, I actually tea-dyed them ahead of time. This one was already a nice color brown, so I didn't want to mess with that. I did that because after I made this one, I was kind of not real happy with the white envelope. I did try to distress it up a little bit with some oxide. But I wanted to go ahead and get those coffee dyed in advance just to give them that kind of more old vintage look. I'm going to start with this pair. Now the top is already open. These actually still had the flap with the glue on them, and I just cut those off before I tea dyed them because I didn't want to have those on here for this video. For this project. And I thought these envelopes were neat because they have this narrow little window, and what I'm thinking I might do on these is whatever journal card I make to go inside, I might try to stamp a word right there in going up and down vertically so that it shows through the window when you insert it. So that's what I want to do. But first what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open this up on the top and the bottom, both of these envelopes, and I'm going to use my little ruler and my craft knife to do that. Alright, I just cut a little sliver off of the sides of these 2 envelopes. They were already open on the top. So now what I'm going to do is just open it up and lay it flat. and open the other one up and lay it flat, but on the opposite side of that one. So it's going to be like this. I probably would normally take this to my sewing machine and sew the top and the bottom, like I did on my prototype. But I think just for the sake of this video, and also not everybody has a sewing machine, I'm just gonna glue it. So I'm gonna get this middle crease as tight in there as I can, and then I'm gonna take my art glitter glue, because this has one of those real fine tips on it, so I can make a real fine line of glue. So I'm going to get these as even as possible, and I'm going to just run a little line of glue down the edge of each. I'm going to go ahead and grab my glue back and glue these tabs down. I guess I was thinking they were going to be hanging out, but they're not. They meet the end of the paper here. And these envelopes are kind of neat because they've already got like an obvious pocket slot there, the way that they were made. Just, it's kind of neat that that's already obvious that this is a little insert for a pocket here or there. Let me glue this one down. I'm going to do just a tiny bit of trimming where some of the papers aren't matching up perfectly. And I'm not super happy with the way this kind of didn't line up here, but there are things that you can do to fix that. You can cover it up with washi tape or any kind of lace or trim, or you know, actually I think I might change my mind. Having said that, I think I will take this to my sewing machine and do one of those over the edge zigzag stitches just along this top and bottom. So let me do that and I'll be right back. I'm glad I changed my mind about that, because this looks really cool with the zigzag stitching, and I went over the edge. This is what I mean by the over the edge. So when your needle goes back and forth, only the left side is going into your paper and the right side is going off the edge of the paper, and it kind of wraps it. I don't know if you can see that. I really like doing that with a lot of my projects. I just think it looks really neat, so I'm glad I changed my mind and did that. But of course, you don't have to sew. Like I showed you at the beginning, gluing is just fine, and if things don't turn out perfect, it's junk journaling, right? So why should we stress about things being perfect? Okay, so that is the basic construct of this project. So you have this as a page in your journal, you slip it into your signature, sew it into your journal, and you've got pocket here and pocket here with a cool little window. Now, you could leave it like this with words. These two envelopes don't have a lot of markings on them. They do have some. And you can leave it like this with all the markings and the wording showing, or you can cover them up. And I think I'm going to do that today with at least some of the markings. I have got this pack of Tim Holtz worn wallpaper scraps, and it came with a bunch of flat pieces as well as a bunch of kind of some fussy cut things, and I've used most of those up in other projects, but I want to get this used up, so I think I'll use some of these flat pieces to do some covering and some decorating, and maybe even make my cards for inserting into the pockets. So I think what I want to do on this is I want to get a piece that I can use to cover just the spine part. So it's going to cover the words on this side and then this kind of barcode looking thing on this side. So I'm going to flip through here real quick and look for a piece that I want to use for this. There's a lot of pretty, I guess these are faux wallpaper, old wallpaper images. And some of them are really, really pretty. Would go nice. I want it to contrast though, so something like this doesn't give a whole lot of contrast. So I'm probably going to choose one of these more green or blue pieces. I really like this piece, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim it. I don't want to cover up my sewing, but I want to have it so it wraps around the spine just inside my stitching. So I'm going to mark it about right there. And grab my cutter here real quick. Trim that down. Can save that piece for something else. Okay. Now I want it to wrap farther around this side than this side because I don't have a lot to cover on this side, but I don't want it to go beyond the pocket either. So let me see how much. I kind of want it to just kind of go up to this symbol right here. I don't know if you can see it. It's just a pretty little symbol. This is a mailing I get from Our Daily Bread Ministries with some little inspirational readings. So 2 1/4 would bring it 2 1/4, and one more little tick mark on my ruler would bring it up to that point. So that would be, let me get out my little scoreboard here. And I'm going to score this at that same point. So I said 2 1/4 and one more little eighth. I'm going to score it right there and fold that. I may end up having to trim this down. So that, yeah, see, that's going to cover my window. But it goes, So I didn't quite get it far enough up to cover Our Daily Bread, but that's okay. I can do something else to fix that, but I'm going to trim off on this side. I think I'm going to trim it down too, because I don't want anything covering that window. So let me see, I need to trim it down probably about 1 inch or so on this side. Alright, so I trimmed that side down, and I also trimmed this one a little bit more because I would rather all that wording show. I didn't like the way it was cutting right through Our Daily Bread there. So I just trimmed a little bit more off, and I like the way that looks better. And now I'm going to do, before I glue anything down here, I'm going to do the same thing on the inside, but I'm going to use this paper, and I can use this as my guide for where to cut. So I'm just going to line this up. So I've got this one for the outside and this one for the inside, and that covers up most of the writing and markings on these envelopes. But before I glue these in place, I want to do one more thing. I'm kind of not liking the cut straight edges of this, so I'm going to take this little tool, and this is a Tim Holtz distressing tool, and it's got these little sharp, I don't know if that's in focus, so you can kind of see those blades in there, and it's all the same all around, but you just take it and you kind of work the edge of your paper through it, and you can see it just roughs up that edge. And after we rough up the edges, we're going to take some ink to it and distress it with that as well, and it will pick up that ink better, being kind of distressed and almost shredded in a way like this. So I'm going to do that to both of these pieces of this scrapbook paper. I should also mention that you don't have to have a special tool like this. You can use the edge of a pair of scissors as well, and you just kind of open it up and do like this. In a way, this is easier to use too, so please don't feel like just because you see me using a fancy little tool, you have to go out and get it. I don't want to give you that impression, because there's other ways to get things done. Got that all done, and another thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to tear off the pointy corners, just because I kind of just want it to have more of a grungy, distressed look, and the straight lines and sharp corners kind of don't give it that. So I'm going to just tear off like a tiny piece on each of the corners, just so it doesn't have that sharp corner. I'm going to take my Vintage Photo Distress Oxide and ink those up. See how well that kind of torn edge or distressed edge picks up the ink? I love that. And I'm also going to ink this crease. I've got those all inked up. Oh, I think I forgot this crease right here in the middle. I forgot this was going to show on the inside. Of course, once it's sewn into a signature, you know, that it might not, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. But I got to thinking that what I want to do here when I glue these down is on this side that doesn't have the little window, I want to just glue the side so then I have another little pocket. So I'm going to start with this inside piece. Let me just set that one aside for a sec and kind of get it in place here. And I'm going to glue down this whole side on this side where the envelope or where the window is. But on the other side, I'm going to turn it into a little pocket. So I'm going to put glue all over this side. And then on this side, I'm just going to put the glue on the edges. So we're creating another pocket. We just love pockets as junk journalers, don't we? And now I'm going to do the same thing on the outside. flip it over and just do the two side edges. This is one of the little flowers left over from that same set of wallpaper papers. And I inked it up, distressed it a little bit, and I think I'm gonna add this to the front. Just like this, I wanna kinda cover up that MR, but I don't wanna cover up too much of the window, so I'm just gonna put this on here like this. For cards to make to slip into my pockets, I dove into my drawer full of scraps and I found this file folder. I had obviously cut off a piece of it for another project and still had this much left over. But I'm going to do a little bit of measuring and make a couple journal cards out of this to slip into these pockets. So let's see, that's gonna be about, let's see, 3 3/4 deep, and I'm gonna make it 6 long. So I'm gonna grab actually I think I need my big one. Okay. Grab my big cutter here, my big trimmer, paper trimmer, and I'm gonna start, actually for starters, I'm just gonna cut this flap off because I don't believe that's gonna be wide enough for either of these cards, and that will go back into the drawer, the great big drawer of scraps that I have to my left here. Just as an aside, I thought I would show you my scrap drawer. It's just the top left drawer of my craft desk here, and I just throw all of my cut-offs and scraps that I think are big enough to possibly be used in a project someday. There's a piece of a paper bag left. Up here at the front, I have like smaller scraps and strips. And then this, I've shown you this before, I believe. This is my little box of tiny things that I tear up and get ready to use for, mostly for collaging projects. But that's just, it's all kind of neutral book pages and brown paper and those kind of scraps that I keep torn up when I need little pieces of scraps. Sorry, I'm not very good about holding my camera and recording at the same time. Anyway, back to the business at hand. Okay, so I was gonna do 6. I want to do it from this straight edge. 6 inches. And I believe I said 3 3/4. Did I? Now I'm gonna have to check again. What did I do with that? Yeah, 3 3/4 is gonna be good. So I'm gonna line that up. 3 3/4. Oop. This edge is not even here, so let me trim that even first. Okay. Now this kind of scrap I really don't keep. That's going in the trash bin. Okay, 3 3/4. And I'm gonna make 2 of them. I'm gonna round my corners. I think I'll use this medium-sized rounding spot on my punch. want to put some tabs on these two cards, so to make it easier to pull them in and out of the pockets. So I'm going to take this scrap that was left over from this piece. I'm going to actually make one tab out of each of these two scraps. And I'm going to use this punch, which I got from Temu. This is what they call the whale tail punch. I guess it's real popular here in the junk journaling world to have one of these, and I finally got a hold of one a couple of months ago and ordered it from Temu. I want to say it was $11 or $12, maybe, something like that. But you fold your paper so that the fold is going to go back against this back part of the punch, and you have your whale tail punch. And I want to make one out of each one of these scraps. So I'm going to fold this and do the same thing. Whoa! I punched that and it went flying. Okay, so I'm going to ink those up as well. I'm sure you saw I inked the cards. I'm going to ink the tabs all the way around, as well as this part. Okay, so here we have it. As far as what I put on the journal cards, I kind of want to put some words, but I want them to be vertical, so I don't want them to be sideways, if that makes any sense. For like, I pulled out my box of words here, and you know, they would all be sideways like this. If I used anything in here, I can't find anything that is vertical. If I'm making any sense there. Like, I have a lot of things that would fit in there if I put them on the card, and then it would show through the window, but they'd be sideways. So I'm going to think about that, but I'll show you what I have so far. And as far as decorating these go, that's up to your discretion. You can do more. You can cover up all these little markings. These aren't bothering me, really. I just wanted to cover up the bulk of them. So let me show you real quick what I've done here. This is the first journal card. I used the tab that I made from this paper, so it would contrast with this part. And then on the inside, I used the other tab, so it would contrast with this. But I also just went to my stash and grabbed out a few other pieces of ephemera to put in that pocket, and to put in this back pocket. I had two in this back pocket as well. So it's a page of pockets. You can do anything you want with these, really. It's very versatile. You could do like I did on my prototype, which, if I can find it over here in this pile, I'll show you again. Where I made writing space instead of, putting another pocket there. I made a writing space by just gluing some graph paper down to these sides. And then you've got all the writing space on the journal cards as well. So there's that one. Before I go on, also, I wanted to kind of show off this little paper flower that I made with just scraps, cutting them up into different petals and then putting them all together. It's like a layered flower with a brad in the middle. This back one won't spin because I do have it kind of glued down, but all the rest of these turn, and it just kind of makes a nice little adds a little bit of texture to a project without a lot of bulk. As you can see, it's still pretty flat. The brad adds just a little bit of bulk, but I've been making paper flowers lately with some of my scraps, and that's a fun in front of the TV activity I can do in the evening when I'm hanging out watching our show with me and my husband. So just wanted to show you that. Another thing you have to keep in mind when you're making these is the size of the journal that you're going to be putting it in. And most of my standard size journals I make to accommodate 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper. So I really want to do one of these little folios with these brown envelopes, but they're very tall. They're a little over 9 inches tall, which isn't going to fit in a journal made to accommodate 8.5 by 11, obviously. So what I'm going to do with these to start off with is trim them down on this edge. Now the width is fine. They're just a little bit over 4¼ inches wide, so I'm not going to worry about that, but I'm going to trim these down so that it'll fit in one of my standard size journals that I make for 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper. So I'm basically going to trim these down to 8.5 this way. Okay, so I got these trimmed down, and I trimmed a sliver off of the other end and this edge as well. So it opens up like this now. So I'm going to open that one up like that. And this one is going to go like this. Okay, yeah. I'm thinking about these two edges here are going to be my pockets, so I was thinking about if I wanted to punch notches or something like that, but I can do that afterwards. So I'm going to put some paper clips on these two ends that I'm not sewing across. I'm going to do my best to get this as even as possible. And then I'm going to take it to my sewing machine, just like I did the last one, and do that overlapping zigzag stitch on each of these two ends. Okay, I got that sewn together. I'm going to take my 2-inch circle punch now, and I'm going to make a couple of notches. I'm hoping my punch can handle all 4 of these layers at once, so that way I can be sure that they're in the same, that they line up. Not that it matters. I guess it doesn't matter. This is going to be in a signature. Unless it's in the middle, you won't see them against each other, but what the heck, I'm doing it anyway. Okay, so let's see if it does it. Whoa, that was loud. Okay, so get rid of those. So those are going to be my notches. That just kind of makes it obvious that there's a pocket there. Okay, now next, and a lot of this I'm probably going to do off camera because it'll take a while. These envelopes have a lot of writing that I want to cover up. I wanted to preserve the brown because I love it, but I want to cover up a lot of this. So I think what I'm going to do, like I did on this first one, is get some paper. I don't know if it'll be graph paper, some type of paper for this side and this side to provide more writing space. And then I showed you earlier my little box of collage pieces. I think I'm going to use these to collage over these other sections to cover up a lot of that black writing. So let me do all that off camera because that'll take a minute, and I'll be back. All right, I got that one completed, and just want to show you real quick what I did. So I did some collaging on the front to cover up those black writings, and then I also took a floral piece from that wallpaper set and put that on the front here, kind of overlapping the window a little bit. And then inside that pocket, I've got a journal card. I just put a clear flower sticker there so it would show through the window. And then on this side, I put a piece of some lined, it's hard to see the lines on camera, they're kind of dotted lines, for journaling spot. I did a similar thing on this window page with a flower and the collaging, and a journal card with a flower sticker, and another little journaling spot on the back. I didn't put tabs on this, obviously, because I've got the thumb notches, so that is an easy way to grab those cards out. So that one is done, and I had done this one with you, and this one was my prototype. I did want to show you real quick all the envelopes, and this is just a small amount that I have. I have a whole box full, but at the same time as I was tea dyeing the other ones, I went ahead and tea dyed a whole bunch because I want to do some more projects with these window envelopes. And I'm going to be, I think I'm going to start a playlist and every so often over the next few months have a different project to share with you for using up these window envelopes that I say we all, but I don't know if you have quite the stash that I do of these, but I do have quite a few, so I need to be using them. So that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this video, and God bless.